Welcome to After Hours, Conversations for Music Educators, presented by Amro Music. This is where we share ideas and work towards solutions to better serve your students. This week, Nick Averwater talks with Dr. Tim Lautzenheiser, renowned educator, author, clinician, and Chief Education Officer and Vice President of Education for Conn-Selmer. They'll be discussing the challenges and opportunities for music educators as we enter the second year of living and working through the pandemic. This conversation was recorded January 19th, 2021.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to After Hours Conversations for Music Educators. I could not be more excited about tonight's conversation as I welcome one of my dear friends. But before we get to that, I've just got a couple of announcements that I want to make as everybody makes their way in here to our webinar and they make themselves comfortable. First off, if you have any questions tonight, if you'd like to interact with myself or with Dr. Tim, you can use that question and answer box down at the bottom, question and answer. That's what we're going to be keeping an eye on during tonight's conversation. So if you have anything you want to share, please feel free to do that. Now, in looking ahead, we've got some great conversations on the horizon. On February 2nd will be our next live podcast recording, and we'll have a panel with educators on improving student morale and engagement in your program. We know that student morale is a challenge right now, and so we want to have some educators that have really done a great job at this come and share some of the things that they're doing to increase engagement and morale in their programs. And then after that, on February 16th, we're going to host Dan Emery. Now, Dan hosts the New York Guitar Studio, but he has really dialed in what it means to effectively practice on a musical instrument. And so he's going to come and share best practices for establishing great practice in your program. And so you can come and be a part of that conversation. We're excited to welcome Dan. And then lastly, if you're looking for this conversation or any of our previous recordings, you can get them at amromusic.com/afterhours or wherever you get your podcast. Now, that's all from me. Enough from me for now. Let's meet our guest. You know, since we started this live podcast and webinar recording, I've had a list of names of people I'd love to have on and have a conversation with. And today's guest has been that 1A spot at the very top. And I am excited to welcome someone who has probably committed his career to advancing and advocating for music and has probably influenced and inspired more music educators than any other individual, perhaps I'd say since the dawn of time. A gentleman that just goes affectionately by the name of Dr. Tim. Dr. Tim, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on After Hours today.
No, I'm the one that's excited, Nick. Thanks for inviting me to do this. It's pretty jazzy, huh? See what we can do with this and visit with all our friends out there.
I certainly think so. And I know you're super busy. It's MEA show, a lot of teacher professional development. And I appreciate you setting aside a few minutes to be on the podcast with us today. So Dr. Tim, I know there's been a lot of bad news, but let's talk about your positive. I've heard a lot of silver linings that people have shared as a result of the change in schedule and lifestyle from COVID. What's been your silver lining so far?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. And there's a lot of them. I mean, the fact that I get to be home that's as long as I've ever been home. But I think it's up the level for all of us in technology. Yeah. We can get to more people than we ever have faster. And here's one that I really like, and I'm sure you do too, Nick. People are starting to lock arms to come together. It's amazing. The human creature says, okay, we got to do this. And all of a sudden communications are being made that otherwise probably wouldn't. We'd be down in our silos doing our thing, but it's really exciting. And those are silver linings for sure that I hope we will keep. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's been amazing now. I've been having phone conversations with people and they just say, hey man, hop on Zoom real quick. I'll send you a link.
Yes.
And it's such an engaging way to interact with people from across the country. I mean, you and I are doing it now. Yes. And typically I would see you once or twice a year if I was lucky.
No. And we should have just invested in Zoom about 18 months ago. And then,
man, coulda, woulda, shoulda on that one. Zoom, Amazon, Facebook, Google. We could make a long list of people that, man, if we only had a little extra change in our pocket back then.
Amen.
Yeah. So let's take an assessment of where we are right now. You know, what about this past year? Why has it been so challenging on music educators?
Well, I think if you squeeze all the water out, because we're people, is they miss their students. And for sure, the students miss them, and they miss that great culture that music teachers put together. So I think, well, I wish we could do this, or we can't do this, we can't do this. But when you just go right to the essence of the foundation, we can't be with our kids like we were. So I think that's the big one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All of that got stripped away very suddenly and unceremoniously. I mean, it just kind of ended. And little did we know, I mean, I think most of us schools closed, and it was like, it's going to be a 1 week break and then a 2 week break. And we haven't been back since.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, the one thing we know for sure about all this is we don't know anything for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to proact for whatever shows up. What's that great phrase that says, happiness isn't getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get.
Yeah.
So
this is definitely the time to live by that.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I think too, this has been so challenging because we're having to make a lot of decisions at once that we've never had to make before. I mean, as humans, we try to find rhythm and routine to our life, and that all got stripped away overnight, and we had to create new rhythms and new routines. And that required a lot of intentional decision making. And frankly, that's exhausting, and it hasn't really stopped in many instances.
We're creatures of habit.
Yes.
And once we get in a comfortable slot and rhythm and cadence, to change it is, whoa, what's going on? But it also, with that, shows the adaptability of the human creature.
Yeah.
That says, what's that great cartoon where the two dinosaurs are standing on the shore, and the ark is pulling away, and they're going like, was that today?
I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you interact with a lot of directors, and if today we had our annual physical on music education, what would the prognosis be from your perspective?
Probably depends on the director I'm talking to.
Yeah.
As we've talked about, the programs are a reflection of the teacher. Music probably more than anything else, because music teachers are recruiting and retaining all the time, not just now, but all the time. And as you well know, there are programs where people go in and isn't very strong, and all of a sudden in 2 years, it's phenomenal. And then that person leaves, somebody else comes in, and, it starts to diminish. So you have to ask, what changed? The schedule, the parking lot? No. Fingerings? No. Books? No. What changed is the person up front. And I'm not sure that's true in any other subject quite as loud. Maybe sports. But, math teacher is going to teach math, and that doesn't diminish their value. The math teacher is going to teach math. We create culture and feed it all the time. So
yeah, that's absolutely correct. So, a lot of damage that, I hate to use the word damage, but there's been a lot of changes and probably ramifications is the best word as it impacts music education. What are the 2 or 3 challenges that you see right now that we absolutely must address quickly and quite frankly, passionately? And how do we need to go about addressing some of these challenges?
Boy, those are great questions. Do you stay up at night and think these questions?
Sometimes I wake up and type them down in my phone.
First of all, I think we all need, it's the Stephen Covey thing, choose to understand before being understood, because we're always defending our own programs. And the people under these circumstances that are really doing well are the ones that are going to their principals and going, what can I do to help you? How can we help you? As getting behind the eyes of everybody else. I think that is so important. The other thing is that we focus on the culture right now for the kids. And that's, culture is fed by communication. You go, well, I can't see my kids. Well, hang on. We got technology here, and we got drive-bys and all this sort of thing. So it's going to we, us instead of I, me. And doing everything we can to outreach as opposed to defense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Unpack the we, us, I, me mentality, and maybe unpack that for me further and what that looks like to today.
Yeah. Most people, guilty too as charged, by the way, will make a decision on I, me. What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? And we're at a situation right now where we need to stand back and lock arms for our profession and go, how can we all benefit from whatever decisions made. We're a society, literally spoiled, if you want to get right down to it. We have music in our schools. Yeah. That one of 4 nations. That's pretty sweet. We have jobs, we have faculty that are in the schools. So there's a lot of benefits there if we stand back and look at it. I was talking to a teacher the other day, and she had caught herself. The principal had told her they were going to have to cut the program, and so the kids could be separated and social distancing and all that sort of thing, Nick. And she said she was really upset, and then he was going to cut her budget, and she said she was furious. And he said, "Can you still make it work?" And she said, "No, I can't make it work." And he said, "We'll come back tomorrow and we'll see what we can do." And she said she went back, and he said, "We're going to put you on senior online testing, and we're going to cancel the band for next semester." And she said it never occurred to her to go, he's trying to feed kids in the cafeteria and find out how to do that, or how to get them on buses to be safe, or will the room accommodate it, Yeah. So it's all giving, you get to the highest level of maturity, it's giving. And that doesn't mean you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So
that's certainly, I feel for our administrators, and we've talked a lot on this show over the past year. And I think it was Barry Troball that said, the easiest response your administrator can give right now is no.
Yeah.
And if you're not proactively solving your own problems, then you need to be prepared to get a no.
Yes.
And that one has just stuck with me ever since. And it's hard to relate to all of the challenges that administrators going through right now.
Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Yeah. Because they're looking at a huge piece of the puzzle, right? And I just, you're absolutely right.
So let's back up and talk culture. You kind of mentioned about the importance right now of band as a culture organization. Take me through some of the ways that you have found to be productive and influential to build a positive culture, and maybe some of the ways that you see directors translating that to the COVID environment these days.
Yeah, it's really good. And there's good news about this too that we probably should address. I do administrator conferences like principals and superintendents and leadership things, so forth like that. And they're all concerned about engagement. So this is kind of answer your question a long way. What classes are holding kids where they aren't sitting on their phones or laying in their beds, or, the highest is music by a long shot, because the students want to be part of that family. It's not a class, it's a culture they want to be part of. So how do you feed any culture? You feed it with communication. You feed it with outreach. You feed it with them having some responsibility where they feel that they make a difference, like we all want to do, where they count, where they're varsity, right?
Yeah.
And so it's all communication. The whole game about running a music store is communication, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of it.
With the people, of course.
So get me to that next level on communication. Are you talking about sending positive emails, rah-rahs? What when you say communication, help me better clarify in my mind's eye what that looks like at a productive level.
Well, first of all, I've had a lot of directors say this is the first time ever they've had time to meet their students and know what they're really about. And the buzz term today is social emotional learning, right? That they didn't know their kids lived in this situation or that. And they're having, coffee hours, so to speak, one-on-one with kids that said some of them didn't even know their names. And all of a sudden there's this energy, plus the communication with the parents. And as you well know, the advocacy material is so wonderful. There's nobody that can consume that. And you're a parent that it says my child has to be in music. There's no question, with the benefits that there. So we've never had time to really bring that. We sort of do it at a booster meeting or something, or throw it on the desk. We shouldn't just be dwelling on what we can't do, but let's focus that energy on what we can do, right? And it's amazing what directors are doing. Are you ready for an example? You want an example? Like you have a choice. So this, and we could, it was band, but I could put any noun in there. It would work. Band director was really remorseful because he wasn't going to be able to have beginners. and the fifth graders being the sixth graders, et cetera, et cetera. So he was telling his high school kids about this, his leadership team, and they're like, well, we'll take care of this for you now. And they're like, he said he didn't know what they were going to do. They went, Nick, to the elementary school, and they got the list of all the fifth graders, divided the list, and they called all the parents with the assumption, hi, Mrs. Smith, my name is Jennifer. I know that Sally is going to be a sixth grader next year, and we certainly want to have her part of the band. And I'd like to be her big sister. What instrument do you think she would like to play? With the assumption that Sally's going to do this, right? He said, this has never happened before. He said, usually he's around 45 beginners. He's over 100 right now.
Wow.
And I said, are you going to do it after the virus? He's like, you bet.
Yeah.
Again, having the kids take ownership. And he said the leadership team's just off the chart excited of what they've done. I said, did they all do it? He goes, no, but the ones that did it made the huge difference.
That's exactly.
So hip.
I think that's such a cool idea. And we've heard a lot of success stories using that method, and it sounds so old school. I mean, I know David Wilson here at the University of Mississippi has been preaching the importance of this in our area. But we've had directors that had insanely recruiting seasons during COVID just by, I mean, through the spring and the summer, they just made calls and they gritted and grinded their way to a very successful recruiting class.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, communication isn't what we say that counts. It's what people understand that counts. And boy, you go one-on-one and make somebody feel important, you got a friend for life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How many people have you influenced using that? Because I think every person I've met that knows you says, man, I just want to be best friends with Dr. Tim.
Well, I mean, if there's any truth to the idea that when we're all done and get to the pearly gates, that you'll be measured by the friends you have. There's been many that have upgraded me, including you and your dad. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I love the way that you have targeted communication, and because I think we hear the word communication and we think, hey man, I sent somebody a text message, or I mean, what you're stripping that around and you're talking about having a meaningful conversation with an individual and treating them as such, not just, hey, how was your day? Oh, it was good. Okay, have a seat. I mean, you're taking this as an opportunity to get deeper than that.
Well, yeah. And, you know, we generally communicate with parents when something's wrong, you know, instead of going, hey, Mrs. Johnson, I just got to tell you, you know, Bill's been in the band for 3 years. He's one of the neatest kids in the world. He just quietly does his thing. And you are so lucky to have a son like that. And he makes a difference in the band. And he's going to be, I mean, what parent is not going to just go, Bill, my Bill?
Right.
But it's true. It's true to recognize positive. And positive doesn't mean happy. It means honest and with forward motion. For us to recognize to a parent how cool their kid is. Wow, what an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're talking about that positive, you know, is maybe a little bit different than we all perceive it. And I have to admit, you're a relentlessly positive guy. I think a lot of us in the music industry and the education industry have always admired you for that. I mean, how can we all maintain that level of forward thinking, of positivity going into 2021, and while still being, quite frankly, realistic that there are challenges and there are unique, and we shouldn't just pretend like they're not there?
Boy, these great questions. Positive, for a lot of people, it means sunshine, blowing sunshine or sparkle, or, you know, no. Positive by definition is honest and with forward motion. And as you well know, when people go, well, this is a bad time, I'm not motivated. Motivation comes after you do something, not before. So you get excited about, you have a customer come in and you go through the whole thing after you've made them, or after you've created a situation where they're happy, then you're motivated. You know, we like the concert after it's over with. We like the trip after we've had it. So if we want to stay positive, we've got to do something. Opinions are easy. Actions are what make the difference. Listen, I read the book, Rock Hard Abs in 7 Days. I read that book. I didn't do the exercises. So I think we have to take action. And everything can be better. The way we clean our desk, everything, we can always make things better. What's the Japanese term for that? I'll think about it a little bit, but there's
Not
where you
Kaizen. No.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah, not Kaizen, but the incremental.
Yes, it is. It's Kaizen. That's it.
It. Okay.
Kaizen, constant improvement.
Yeah.
So I know. Don't you get excited when you get your office cleaned up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or you mow the yard or whatever. So
yeah. Yeah, I think, and I think it's important, I do want to kind of pick apart though a little bit. I mean, you mentioned it's not rainbows and butterflies, right. Positivity. And I certainly agree with you, but to a certain extent, I mean, we're all allowed to have bad days. Right. We can say that, but how we handle those bad days, I mean, if we don't sometimes fake it till we make it, doesn't that kind of bleed over into the culture of our program and the consistency of our communication?
Well, I'm of that ilk. I know there's a lot of people that go, no, look, I just want to be sad and upset. What was one person said the other day? Well, I'm just having, this is going to be cool. You may want to take this out. I'm just having a bad day, and was all upset. And I said, well, I'm glad you're not a surgeon.
Yeah.
Because surgeons aren't allowed to have bad days. Pilots aren't allowed to have bad days. Somebody said, well, yeah, but they have lives underneath them. Well, yeah, so do we. And yes, there's certainly time. What does they say? If you fake something for like 7 minutes, your mind doesn't know the difference. So there's times I think we have to put on a happy face, but not be disingenuous about that.
Yeah. I agree. There's a difference, but I think, as leaders, it's a tough balance to strike because we want to entitle ourselves to an occasional bad day. We're humans too, but I think it's a slippery slope because our bad days can influence the people around us, and we have to be cognizant of that and how it impacts others.
Well, and a music teacher for sure.
Yeah,
because they reflect us. Maybe, I mean, they go to history class. This is not cruel, but I'm not sure they listen to the teacher or watch the teachers carefully. Music, that's almost like a relative, isn't it? The music teacher is.
Yeah.
They're there and they feel them. And we're the last expressionistic class in the school where feelings are there and affective is there and context is there. And so absolutely.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I think it is, and I feel for our friends in music education, because I think it is a challenge for them even more so, because some of them you have a math teacher for a year, you have a science teacher for a year, you might have a band director or an orchestra teacher for 4 years, potentially 6 or 7 years.
Yep. And
those students recognize those nuances of the teacher. They see it, and that's tough.
They have them every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes they spend more time with them than they do their parents. And that's great. When I always laugh about that when kids come to school in the morning, they hang out in the band room or the choir room, the orchestra room. They'll get passes to get out of class, go down there and hang out. They got their jackets and it's their family. It's their surrogate family. So it certainly is different. Please understand, I think music is just phenomenal, and I want them there for music. But I think a lot of them they'll be there and they'll play music and make music, but they're there for that culture too, to feel a part of that group. You're absolutely right. Spot on.
Well, and that's why when you spoke with the administrators, the music had the highest engagement. I mean, it was the culture attracting that to it. I can't imagine many of those students were coming for music theory. They were coming for the engagement with their classmates and with their teacher.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And when they go back for visit their high school when they're in college, where do they go?
Yeah.
They go back to the rehearsal room, right?
That's exactly right. A lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2021 is officially here, and I think a lot of us were very hopeful that the calendar would change and all of the problems might disappear. Turns out that that's not the case. Some of them bled over into 2021, but that doesn't mean I think that we have to chalk this year up to almost a lost year, a little bit like 2020 was. I think a lot of us were just writing off 2020, but that doesn't have to be the case. In fact, I think we can make 2021 one of our best years of teaching or of interacting or whatever it is that we do. There's no reason that we can't make it the best we've ever done. In your opinion, I mean, what should we be grading ourselves by, and what should be our expectations if our goal is to make 2021 our best year yet?
That's great. Another great question. Probably different for each person or each program or so forth. This is probably not the year to go from level 4 to level 6 music. We need to take care of our students. We need to they've been damaged, right? We think we're under the gun. I mean, they've been locked in their bedrooms for a long time. And so, and again, flipping the calendar doesn't make any difference. That whole thing about the importance of time is something you can't get back, right? You either use it or you lose it. And to find every possible way for those students to know they've got a home and that we're going to get this all worked out and get you back there. But unless we are going forward, what's what you said? Unless we're going forward, why would they go forward? And sometimes we have to press ourselves. I'm not sure. Do you always want to mow the yard? Did you always want to write that paper in college?
Right.
But you knew once you did it, you were making the right choices. And teachers are so important, so important. So that's go forward, whatever. Pick up paper, throw it away.
Well, and I think you are right. I mean, you know, using the example of level 4 to level 6 is a great, but there's so many things that I think we try to grade ourselves by, or that we have misprioritized. You know, one of my silver linings for COVID has been that, you know, we have a 2-month-old at home and a 4-year-old at home, and I've got to spend more time with my girls than I definitely would have been. I would be at the NAMM show right now.
Yeah.
And I would be missing all of these opportunities. And this reprioritization has made me realize that 2021 can be the best year of my life if I get to spend more time with my family. And so by tweaking what I thought was the things that I should be measuring my success by changing that, it's definitely brought a new outlook for me.
Oh, haven't you found new benefits that you wouldn't have otherwise?
Absolutely.
We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And so, you know, we have control over that filter if we want to take control over it. And, oh my gosh, you're not going to get that time back with those girls. They're going to be growing up asking you for the car keys in a blink of an eye.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
So you make the most of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I do think you're right. The measuring stick that we use within our programs can be changed. You know, traditionally we've strived to get a 1 at concert assessment, and maybe we're not having a concert assessment, but you know, maybe this year it's to have more kids to audition for scholarships, or to institute a new leadership program that you've always wanted to do. I mean, I think that you and I could sit here and brainstorm so many ways that we could redefine success in 2021, and it would still be a great year.
Yeah, what's the guy that said the other day, he'd had his group and they were social distancing. Yeah. And, you know, they didn't get to do all the things they want to do in the fall. And he took them to the children's hospital and they stood out in the courtyard and played. And he said, oh, I'm going to cry. He said the kids hung out the windows and clapped. And he said, They went back and they go, Mr. Miller, we have to do this every year. We have to do this every year. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow.
That's awesome.
Oh, I know. Ah, yes.
And the children's hospital wasn't handing out medals or ones, or quite frankly, they probably didn't know the difference or care, quite frankly, it was just the act of bringing music and sharing it with others.
Yes, it was giving. The act of giving.
Wow. So. And so we could sit here and say it could be a children's hospital, it could be a assisted living facility, it could be, you know, a veterans hospital. I mean, we could come up with a list of a dozen things that would translate to in any community. Yeah. First responders, our other teachers in our program.
So one guy had a parade. The clarinet section had a parade down where their homes and everything, where people come out and clap and giving the kids cookies. A clarinet parade. I mean, really? And he said those kids were ecstatic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% correct, because these challenges are going to continue on, and that's okay. Yeah. We'll make it through this. But this time can still be meaningful and impactful to our students and to ourselves.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Tim, I got some other questions that I've just always wanted to ask you, and this just seems like the best opportunity to do that. Who inspires you?
People like you.
Oh, come on now.
No, not blowing sunshine. People like you that do stuff, that don't wait for it to come to them, but go out. They don't wait for their ship to come in. They swim out and get it. I love people like that. I love people who fail and get right up and get back in the game. The one I heard the other day was just this guy was the editor, Nick, of the Kansas City Star. That's a pretty big deal, yeah, right?
Yeah.
They fired the guy, Nick, because he was not creative, right? So he doesn't have any money. I mean, that's a real kick in the face too, right? He doesn't have any money. He and his wife go to California to live off some of their relatives. And on the way, he's sketching on a little pad. They stop at the diner, get something to eat. And his wife goes, "What are you doing?" She's trying to make him feel good. And he goes, "Oh, I was just riding shotgun. I was sketching." And she goes, "Well, let me see what you got." And she goes, "Oh, it's a little mouse. You drew a little mouse." He goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you have a name for it?" He goes, "Mortimer." It was too cute. Let's call him Mickey. The guy was Walt Disney. What if he'd have quit, Nick?
Yeah. Wow.
Actually, the Kansas City Star did him a favor.
Wow.
And all of us.
I didn't know that story. So Walt Disney was fired by the Kansas City Star for not being creative enough.
Yep. This is guy tried to get into the USC cinema arts program, the largest in the world. Tried twice, couldn't make it. Spielberg's his name.
Yeah. Wow.
So, everybody, there is no failure unless we quit. As long as we're in the game, there's a chance.
That's a great reminder. I think history is riddled with people like that. I mean, you think Michael Jordan got cut from his sophomore basketball team.
Wonder how that feels.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So history is littered with people who have been on that similar journey. So inspired you now, and I appreciate the kudos there. Who inspired you for? I mean, I suspect you're here because there was a music educator or somebody that inspired you. Tell me about that individual and what made them so inspirational to you.
That's a question to ask. Self-serving. Well, certainly my mother, she's just a gifted musician, but I came from a very small school. We had 17 in our high school band, and it was atrocious. It was atrocious. But the choir, there was 212 in our high school, Nick, and that was after consolidation. The choir had 202 in it.
Wow.
So Miss Sellers, she'll always be Miss Sellers, certainly was I mean, everybody sings, right? She knew everybody sang, so we all sang. And she was just she changed the community. So when, they go, "Well, I'm only one person, I can't make a difference." Well, Miss Sellers made a difference, and unfortunately when she left, they hired 2 teachers and it went down to 100 and then to 60, no choir at that school anymore.
Wow.
So those are the kind of people who are just so electric. You can't stay away from them. They're just exciting. So, yeah. And of course, my college band director, who was phenomenal. Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't know this about you. I mean, you came from a kind of small town. I'm picking up here. So sometimes I'll interact with a young educator. Usually they're young, just starting out in their career. And I'll hear some comment about, I would love to be that program, but I can never have that here because of the size of my school or the size of the community. What comes to mind when you hear comments like that and how it relates to your previous experiences?
Argue for your limitations and you get to own them. Makes sense?
Argue for your limitations and you get to own them.
Yeah, because you've already, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're always correct.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy. So, I mean, I look at the people who are successful and I go, "You came from where? How in the devil did you?" And there's just one success story after another like that. So it's out there. The gold bars are there.
Yeah.
Don't waste time not looking for them.
I love that. I mean, you're an example of that. I had no idea that you came from a small community like that. And choir was the So did you sing in the band and the choir?
I sang in the choir. Everybody sang in the choir.
Everybody sang in the choir, and then you participated in the band.
Everybody was in the choir, and the band was, it just really wasn't very good. But I love playing my drums, so I was there. But if you ever happen to come, Nick, to Bluffton, Indiana, that mecca of art. But if you go to any church, and I've talked about this before, and when it comes to time to sing hymns, everybody will stand up and sing, and they sing their part. It's because of Miss Sellers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she just never thought it could not be done.
Yeah.
Harold Hill, right? Music man.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah. I think that's so unique for you because I think so many great educators, they had a great band director, or if they're an orchestra teacher, it was a great orchestra teacher that they look up to. And for you, it was kind of a different story. You loved your instrument, but you saw the bigger picture of the influence of music and the role it had on your community. And that carried you, propelled you. That's a unique story.
Didn't you have some really good teachers in college and high school?
I did. Yeah, I did. I had a wonderful band director, Mr. Pat Bolton at Christian Brothers.
Oh, Pat was your band director?
Pat Bolton was my band director.
Oh.
I held trombone. Play was a stretch, but I held trombone. As my good friend Brian Pitts at South Haven would say, he kind of would rib at me about that. But yeah, I remember one of my hardest teachers in college was my accounting 301 professor, and you wanted to throw the book at him when you were done. In fact, I remember one student in the final exam actually threw the final exam at him across the room. But I probably learned more in that class and was motivated I studied harder for that class than I did any of my other classes because I wanted to earn that grade and, quite frankly, the teacher's respect.
So I have a question for you. Was it the message or was it the messenger?
Oh, it was the messenger, because accounting is boring. Let's just be honest here, Dr. Tim, together. It was the messenger that motivated me, and that it was not the material. Statement of cash flows does not excite anybody. But that was the course. So that's a prime example here as you kind of flip the interview script on me. Well, Dr. Tim, I just got a couple more questions I want to ask you here as we're approaching kind of the 45-minute mark, and I do appreciate your time. What's the best advice that you ever received in your career?
To give up giving up. I've got great advice about music and the discipline of music and art and so forth and everything, but it really came down to give up giving up, because there's certainly times that I wanted to throw in the towel. Yeah. And that little voice would come in for my band director. You got to give up giving up.
Do you have one of those times you want to share? What did that
I wanted to give up?
Yeah, because I just don't see you, Dr. Tim. Everybody looks at Dr. Tim as the beacon of forever moving forward, but we're human.
Well, I don't wake up every morning and tap dance into the shower and going, it's a wonderful day like today. Or I have flat tires and all that sort of thing. It's just, it would be to have any regrets, Nick, or to look at negative things compared to the blessings I have would be rude. It would be cruel. I'm so blessed. Yeah. So I have to keep reminding myself sometimes when, I don't get the French fries I want or whatever.
Yeah, that's great. And then my last question, the piece of advice that you would share with music educators right now during COVID-19 and as we kick off 2021?
Yeah, first of all, you have to take care of yourself. I think, there's some of that martyr syndrome gets in there sometimes, when you're on the airplane and they say, and, when the masks drop down, put yours on first, then put on your child's. Because we can't give away what we don't have. So, this is no time to be a hero and just, you have to take care of yourself. And for certain, that offers the chance to take care of others. You get to the highest level of maturity. Maturity is the ability to understand how your behavior impacts other people. And you get to the highest level, the people who are really make a difference were the teachers, were the givers, were the Jesus Christ, were the Mother Teresa's, right? Were the Gandhis, were the people who gave. Because that's where, if you do this to get that, you made that more important than this. We do what we do because it itself is the that. That's the reason we do it, for the sake of doing it. That's great.
That's great. Well, Dr. Tim, I really appreciate your time today. Just a few moments to come on and join us here for a live webinar recording and podcast here of After Hours. So for everybody that's joining us live, thank you so much for being a part of today's conversation. As a reminder, our next conversation is going to be coming up on February 2nd on improving student morale and engagement. And we picked this one intentionally because, Dr. Tim, I know you and Scott Lang are very good buddies. Did you catch his be part of the music survey where they noted that student engagement is one of the hardest things right now for educators, and that's why we're tackling that. And so we're excited to have that conversation here coming up with some expert educators. So again, we'll be talking about how to combat apathy and increasing student engagement and keeping your kids motivated through this challenging time. So look forward to that one. Of course, Dr. Tim, you're welcome to sit in on that one too, if you would like to come back and join us, my friend.
Thank you.
Well, appreciate everything you do. Thanks for just being a beacon and for music educators and for the music products industry, and just constantly reminding us that music makes a difference. And that's such an important message. And you carry that banner as loud and as vibrantly as anybody. So thank you for doing what you do, Dr. Tim.
And if I come to the store, you'll show me where the best barbecue place is in town?
Anytime, my friend. Anytime, my friend. I suspect there's myself and a long list of participants on the call today would be more than happy to do that with you. So we really appreciate it. So everyone joining us, have a wonderful evening. Thanks for being a part of tonight's conversation. Stay safe, wash your hands, and we will see you at the next After Hours Conversations for Music Educators. Y'all have a great evening. Bye, Dr. Tim.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to After Hours, Conversations for Music Educators, presented by Amro Music. This podcast features conversations with music educators who are finding innovative ways to teach their students. You can hear and see more conversations at amromusic.com/afterhours.